So let's begin. Welcome everyone to the data.europa Academy webinar. Today we are focusing on the open data maturity assessment and the results from 2024 with some speakers from Latvia and Croatia to share their best practices and key takeaways. So before we start, some rules of the game. One, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available afterwards, along with all the materials like the slides. If you have questions throughout the webinar, you can drop them in the chat. There will be a question and answer panel discussion at the end. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. We will collect it and we will answer it at the end of the webinar. And after the webinar, we would appreciate it if you can reserve some time to fill out the feedback form so we can continuously improve our offering. Let's start with some introductions. I will introduce myself first before introducing our two speakers. I'm Martin Page. I'm a senior consultant at Capgemini Invent, and I contribute to data.europa.eu as the study lead of the Open Data Maturity Report and as a project manager for several open data initiatives. Joining me today is Jānis Krakops. He is the head of the data management unit at the Ministry of Smart Administration and Regional Development of Latvia. Jānis and his team are tasked with developing the national data governance policy and related EU initiatives such as data spaces, the Data Governance Act, and so on. We are also joined by Zelik Motika. She is a senior consultant in the data management department within the interoperability and data management sector at the Ministry of Justice, Public Administration and Digital Transformation in Croatia. She is responsible for the administration and development of the National Open Data Portal and the implementation of the Open Data Policy. And her professional interests include language technologies, where she's in charge of managing the National Language Technology Platform, as well as systems for the management of official documentation. So join me in welcoming our two speakers. Then the agenda for today. To start off this webinar, I will present a overview of the key findings of the 2024 Open Data Maturity Report. That will then be followed by a presentation from Jānis about open data best practices in Latvia. Then we'll welcome Zelik to speak about the open data best practices in Croatia. We will then wrap up with a question and answer sessions. Okay. So I will then kick off the webinar, giving an overview of the Open Data Maturity Report. So welcome again, and thank you for joining. I'm excited to start this webinar by presenting the highlights of the Open Data Maturity Assessment in 2024. As I mentioned, I'm Dr. Martin Page, and I'm the lead researcher of the Open Data Maturity Report. The Open Data Maturity Assessment is a policy research report, and it's one of the many ways that data.europa.eu supports the EU's goals around open data. As you may know, we conduct the Open Data Maturity Report to understand the maturity of countries in this field and how it changes over time. But besides the benchmarking aspect, we also focus in the report on developing and sharing best practices. The report is now in its 10th year, and it provides this annual measurement of the progress of European countries in making public sector information available and stimulating its reuse in line with the Open Data Directive. And this report is made possible because various countries across Europe elect to participate in the self-assessment, where they summarize the various activities, initiatives, and statistics in the field of open data that then documents the state of play, which then the research team at data.europa.eu translate into the Open Data Maturity Report. And in 2024, 34 countries participated from across Europe, so within the EU 27, but also EFTA and candidate countries. In 2024, there was also a method update. So over time, the method undergoes planned updates, which is an important process to ensure that the methodology remains current and relevant. And we keep various factors in mind when updating the method. So on the one hand, we want to capture the advancements in the field, such as advancements in technology or advancements in policy. But at the same time, we want to keep the method complete and comparable, and also retain the historical comparability. However, when updating the method, there are always some effects to the time series, which can cause an impact on scores, such as fewer year-on-year improvements. And this is a kind of standard practice, and then the idea is to keep the method stable for the next period, and then have another planned revision so that the methodology remains relevant and robust. And how that looked this year is that we introduced some new questions, reformulated some questions, and removed some questions. But overall, the framework remained the same. And that framework is that open data maturity in Europe is conceptualized on 4 dimensions. There's the policy dimension that looks at the level of development of national and local policies that promote open data. We then have the portal dimension, which looks at the processes and activities around making data openly available, and the portal features and functionalities that then put that in the hands of citizens. The third dimension is quality, where we look at the metadata quality and compliance with the various standards of quality, such as data.europa. And lastly, there's the impact dimension, which investigates initiatives to monitor the reuse and impact of open data. So what I would like to do now is to look at the key highlights of each of these 4 dimensions. If we start with the policy dimension, this dimension is designed to encourage the practical implementation of policy measures, and therefore it investigates the governance structures, operating models, processes, and activities in place to realize the ambitions set out in national policies and strategies. And in 2024, this remains the most mature dimension. Open data policies are well established, and what we see year on year is that more and more activities and processes are being put in place to support and monitor the practical implementation of policies. So moving from the policy framework into the real practical and tangible implementation. If we then go to the portal dimension, this dimension is designed to encourage national portals to provide users with the features and functions that they need and expect, and overall to create a good user experience, which then will encourage the uptake of open data. And what we see is that lots of data is made available, the portals are established, and there is this core functionality in place. But what we are not seeing is kind of across countries a general push to improve the maturity in this area. So with the method update that removed some questions about the basic functionalities of portals that were mature across all countries, this year this dimension decreased on average, notwithstanding some individual cases of larger transformation projects, but such projects are not the norm. If we then go to the quality dimension, this dimension is designed to encourage national portals to publish datasets that have high quality metadata. Last year, this dimension saw a good increase in maturity. This year, the score is slightly lower, probably related to some of the streamlining of the questions in this section as part of the method update, especially about the type of support offered to help data providers provide high quality metadata. But what we see that nonetheless this quality dimension and these questions about improving metadata quality remain an area of focus, but encouraging and supporting data providers to supply this high quality metadata does remain a challenge. If we then go to the impact dimension, this dimension is designed to encourage open data teams to implement ways to monitor open data reuse and to better understand the needs of the reuser community. And for a second year in a row, this is that dimension that has increased the most year on year, which means that countries are putting in greater efforts to set up the methodologies to be able to collect and classify reuse cases. So what we see is that there's an increasing amount of evidence available on reuse, that open data is being reused. And this is the main focus of what this dimension is indeed measuring. We then go on to one of the big topics, contemporary topics in the field of open data, which is high-value data sets. And through ODM, we investigated the areas of technical and legal requirements, and looked at which are more mature, which are less mature, as well as the maturity within the 6 categories of high-value data sets. And what we see is a similar pattern as last year, but that the maturity has increased significantly. So if we take the requirements first, so countries have made good progress in identifying what data sets and what administration and who is the data holder. So understanding this landscape, that's kind of one of the most mature kind of activities that have been done, which is the same as last year, but year on year, this is increased in maturity by 20%. So a really big step forward. On the technical requirements, these remain less mature relative to, for example, identifying the data sets, but nonetheless still see a 10% increase in maturity from last year. And it's similar with the categories. Statistics and geospatial data remains the most advanced, and company data the least advanced. But across all the categories, there's around a 10% increase in maturity year on year. So a lot of activity and progress being made around high-value data sets. And last year, the implementing regulation was came into force. So overall, in total, that leaves us with an EU average that is remaining stable. If we look beyond the EU to all participating countries, there we had a 1% increase in overall maturity. And this, the overall improvements on the policy and impact dimension were balanced out by some decreases on the portal and quality dimension. And here there's also the influence of the method update. But if we look at the broader trends, we see that we expect these will continue. That is an increased focus on metadata quality and also around asking deeper questions about impact, going beyond the evidence of the reuse case. So to wrap up, the report is on data.europa.eu, and I encourage you to download it, read it, and see what other materials are available there. So I will move to here and invite then Zilka to speak about some open data best practices in Croatia, and then we go back to Janis.
Okay, thank you, Martin. I hope you can hear me and see me. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Željka Motika, and I'm a senior advisor at the Ministry of Justice, Public Administration and Digital Transformation of the Republic of Croatia. Maybe before I begin my presentation, I just want to add a small remark, which I think is important to stress. In the period covered by the Open Data Maturity Report 2024, Central State Office for the Development of the Digital Society was the public body responsible for digital transition, which included open data as well. Later on in 2024, office became part of the Ministry of Justice, Public Administration, Digital Transformation, of which I am part now, and took over all office's competencies. So this is just to note that the body to which I will be referring later on in the presentation does no longer exist. Now to the presentation. The report showed that Croatia made, let's say, significant progress in several monitoring dimensions, which prompted us to hope that these advancements position Croatia as a country to watch in the open data landscape, at least for those countries that are at the beginning of their open data initiatives. Croatia improved its score by 10 percentage points in policy dimension, showcasing stronger governance and frameworks in the field of open data. We scored even better in portal dimension, which improved by 14 percentage points compared to 2023. And the best result we had, which was also a bit of a surprise for us, in impact dimension, 17 percentage points increase, for which we believe is mainly a result of a stronger government collaboration with other sectors and stakeholders in the open data field. All this make overall increase of 9 percentage points compared to 2023. But I have to stress that Croatia is, however, still in the beginners group with overall modest maturity score of 68.4%. Croatia has an open data policy dating back to 2018, in which open data is the basis of the concept of open government, and which supports or were supporting the reuse of open data by the public sector. Almost all public authorities at the national and local level have published assets lists that also contain data sets not intended for publication and were applicable high-value data sets. Croatia implemented also the Open Data Directive into the national legislation by amending the law on the right to access to information, and we continue to keep pace with the EU legislative framework. In 2023, we organized training programs for civil servants to improve the understanding and the application of open data regulations. The implementation of the provisions is monitored also through annual reports on the right to the access to information, which are mandatory to all public bodies at the national and local level. We even have a special section in this report dedicated to the publication of a data set on the National Open Data Portal. We believe that the leap that Croatia has achieved in the policy dimension is due mainly to the expansion of the network of all stakeholders in the field of open data. The reason for this is that in 2022 and 23, Croatia initiated or was in the process of implementing several large information infrastructure projects, and also drafted a new open data policy followed with supported with action plan. This encouraged greater cooperation between public bodies, the civil sector, and the business community. So the interactions of the coordinator, which was at the time the Central State Office for the Development of Digital Society, and open data with a wide network of stakeholders intensified. Working group for the coordination of state information infrastructure projects and digital transformation was set, and although it dealt with a broader scope than the open data itself, it fostered also collaboration in this field and ensured open data policies are integrated into several digital strategy. We also set the working group for drafting the new open data policy, which particularly intensified the cooperation between public bodies and contributed also to the support for local and regional open data initiatives. Central State Office and information officers at that time, as a result of the working group activities, organized webinars, issued guidelines, provided technical assistance to ensure that open data policy is implemented at the national and especially at the local level. National open data also became platform for local authorities to share their data, because even if a small country, Croatia, has more than 500 local entities, cities, municipalities, and counties, which frequently don't have sufficient financial means to publish open and publish their own data sets. Croatia established Open Data Portal in 2015, so we have a 10-year anniversary coming soon. It's a one-stop shop. It was and still is one-stop shop for access to data sets and information and all news relevant to the open data. Portal has several advanced functionalities such as Sparkle search engine, dataset requests, and we can also track status of those requests. We enable interaction between data providers and users through post your comments and suggestion sections at the Open Data Portal. We also monitor portal traffic using Google Analytics combined with internal system statistical parameters, and we also publish some statistical data at our Open Data Portal. APIs also is available at the portal. There is access to real-time meteorological and geospatial data, and as I mentioned before, portal serves as a platform for local authorities, especially for those smaller cities and municipalities, to share their data. However, what we think improved the portal the most was the implementation of the project called Adaptation of Information Systems of Public Sector's Bodies to the National Open Data Portal. This project ended in 2023, and it enabled the development of, for us, very useful centralized transformation service and the automatic updating of data sets and their metadata. As well, it enabled the harvesting of several local and open data portals, such as City of Rijeka, City of Zagreb, and City of Varaždin, which have their own open data portals at the local level. Metadata expansion, advanced search options, and users' feedbacks are also direct consequences of the project activities. The simultaneous implementation of information infrastructure projects, the creation of a new open data policy, and the improvement of the national open data portal made Croatia achieve what we call a significant leap in the open data impact dimension as well, we believe. These projects and initiatives have fostered stronger cooperation between public authorities, in particular those between the coordinator, that is office at the time, and the local and regional public bodies. The formal Central State Office, as the body who was at the time responsible for the establishment and maintenance of the national portal, provided infrastructural and technical support to the public sector at the national and local level in opening and publishing data, and participated as well in the education of local authorities. In order to promote the reuse of open data, the office, in cooperation with the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing, organized a datathon in 2023. All this was possible because of the financial funding of the project activities were all funded by the implementation of the project. During that datathon event, 8 student teams participated with 9 innovative IT conceptual solutions from the social, economic, environmental, and political field. And Datathon also hosted speakers and participants from civil sector and business community sector. This was a very successful event in organizing together people from different sectors and making them exchange knowledge and raising awareness of the importance of the open data. National definition of the reuse of open data has already been implemented in national legislation under our Right of Access to Information Act. In the open data quality dimension, Croatia is still lagging behind the EU average with a score of 67. I would add modest score of 67%. Although the publication and updating of data and metadata on the portal is available through API and harvesting is also available, such an update method is currently only working out for a few data providers or publishers, as we call them, and their data sets. Open Data Portal is a DCAT AP compliant CCAN platform, but we are even now at the moment struggling to implement HVD stacks. We have especially problem with implementing the applicable legislation tag, which would allow the European Open Data Portal to harvest our meteorological and geospatial data. We have those data published and ready, but the European Open Data Portal, due to those technical problems, can't harvest them. The basic preconditions for deployment quality are also met because our data sets are available under open data license and in open machine readable formats. However, the activities to ensure systematic approach to high quality data and metadata quality monitoring are still, I'd say, largely insufficient. It is quite clear from what I presented so far that Croatia faces still many challenges, particularly in the field of data quality and standardization, financial uncertainties that can threaten the sustainability of the open data initiatives, and private sector limited reuse of open data. We found that the private sector, especially private sector, is not yet fully aware of the potential of the open data, and I think we have that there's a long road before in front of us to raise the awareness of the beneficiaries that can be taken from the reuse of open data in all sectors, but especially for the business community. Scores like these published at the Open Data Maturity Report 2024 are a good incentive for countries like Croatia, because we now like to persist, and with recent structural changes that we undergo, we have some solid ground and hope for further improvements. As mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, a new open data team is formed within the Ministry of Justice, Public Administration and Digital Transition. And now we have a unit, institutional unit, which is strictly dedicated to the data management with a special accent on the open data management. Adoption of a new open data policy with this time supporting action plan, because our open data policy from 2018 wasn't supported with the measures from the action plan, is now on its way too, and we believe it will be adopted by April. And expect that once adopted, it will allow further strengthening of interinstitutional and cross-sectoral cooperation, as well as some financial support to and sustainability of the initiative itself and of the open data portal. Also, project that will, we think, immensely contribute to the development of the open data field in all segments, such as data lake repository and the meta registry, are in the final stages now, so that some processes that dragged before will be speeded up and accelerated in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. That's all from Croatia Open Data Maturity Report and advancements that we had in 2022 and 2023.
Thank you very much, Željka, for the presentation. If anyone has questions, drop them in the chat. At the end, we will ask Željka to join us again on the stage for the panel discussion. Then next, I'd like to invite again Jānis to come on stage to speak about the best practices in Latvia.
Yes, so quick sound check. Does it work?
Yeah, I see you. I hear you. Perfect.
Excellent. So I don't know, for 4 years of let's say online meetings and online events, and still challenges occur. So, yes. So as I was talking to myself previously for a few minutes, so first things first, I would like to thank the colleagues from the Commission for inviting us to share our best practice regarding open data policy and practical implementation in Latvia. My name is Jānis Krakops. I'm the head of the data management unit from the Ministry of Smart Administration and Regional Development. We are in charge of developing the national data policy, and of course, under this umbrella, also the open data branch. Before I go into my presentation, and in my presentation, I will cover, of course, similar topics to my colleagues, basically the pillars of the open data maturity assessment, and also I will give a brief, let's say, overview of our roadmap or development roadmap of our open data ecosystem that we have planned in the near future. But first things first, I would like to use this opportunity to also give a huge shout out to the team in Latvia from the ministry and also from the State Digital Development Agency. In the slide, you can see their faces. I think that you all know that when you're implementing a policy or developing, let's say, an ecosystem, no one person really is the, let's say, one person can only go so far, and you need a very good team. And these people that you can see on the slide, they are the colleagues from Latvia who are working on the development of our national open data portal, open data policy, etc. So these are the people, as it's said on the slide, these are the people behind the scenes who make the magic happen. So kudos to my colleagues. Thank you very much for your work, and yeah, we look to, let's say, strive to achieve even better results in the future, of course. But for the first part of my story for today, I will talk about the open data policy. As Martin already said, open data policy already has some, let's say, history at the European level, and of course in Latvia also. It's not something that let's say is new, and it's already been, let's say, at the forefront of innovation, I think, for the past at least 20 years. So and Latvia, of course, is no exception to this. Our, let's say, legislation is very much developed in a way that it, let's say, fosters the opening of data or reuse of information. We have, let's say, our national, of course, laws in place that mandate institutions to open their data, to implement the open by default principle. We have had some, let's say, different points of view on how is the better, let's say, to implement this principle. But for in the past, we have gone more or less the route of action plans and all that stuff. But in the future, we will try to implement the open by default principle, of course, in a more, let's say, consistent process-like manner, basically allowing institutions to open the data that is, let's say, valued by the reuse community, so that we can create new innovative projects. Of course, as colleagues already mentioned, Latvia is, let's say, also very much focusing on the publication of high-value data sets. And of course, this is a matter that also, let's say, triggers additional processes that we have to tackle at the national level, mainly finance, because when we talk about opening the information, the data provider, of course, has to be compensated. So I would say the high-value data set, the opening of high-value data sets is an ongoing process, and we are very, very happy with the results that we have already achieved. But of course, that this process, in some instances, it does take some time, because you do have to, let's say, take into consideration the fact that you also need to provide the funding for the data providers and all that stuff, put it in place so that these data sets can be, let's say, opened. In addition to, let's say, classical laws or cabinet of ministers rules as we have in Latvia, we also try to, let's say, talk to our local stakeholders from the public sector. For example, when we are implementing new ICT projects, one of the, let's say, requirements that we usually check, and we have basically checked it as one of the, I think, already you can say, cornerstones of ICT development projects. Basically, in the project passport, you have the section, okay, what kind of data will I open? And then through this, let's say, tool of developing new ICT solutions, we also get new interesting open data. We also talk to our colleagues in the process of approving regulations. So, for example, if some new regulations are being drafted or some amendments are being made, my colleagues are, let's say, very much on it and are talking to the fellow institutions and asking, okay, you're implementing this new regulation, maybe you can also open this and this data. But of course, we also, the goal is not to open everything at once. We want to open the data that's really basically adds the most value. So to understand this aspect, of course, we need to have close interaction with our local stakeholders. So in the past years, also similarly to the colleague from Croatia, also through the help of EU projects, we have also organized many events to, let's say, popularize open data in our society. The reuse of open data. In the last year, we had one hackathon that was organized in cooperation with the state administration school, and basically the winners of the event, they also have the chance to create a prototype of their, let's say, solution that they modeled in the hackathon. So I think that's very much a big incentive for everybody to participate in these kind of events, and it really shows the practical results from working with data. We also have a very much engaged data provider community, and of course also the data consumer community, who are mostly the reusers. But in the past year, we put forth, let's say, a targeted effort to very much talk to this community to understand, okay, what are your requirements, what are your needs, how can we maybe adapt the portal to make it more or less suitable for your business. And of course, we also participated in hackathons that were organized by other institutions as the owners of the open data portal, the State Digital Development Agency. They, of course, are one of the enablers in these sort of events. And also, of course, we are focusing on very much the education aspect of data. So we are working to also facilitate the uptake of digital skills, especially regarding the work with data. The next aspect that I would like to talk about is the open data impact. So basically, from the open data impact, the main takeaway I think for me is what is the, let's say, what's the result. So basically, institutions publish their data, but I think for the whole open data community is very much interesting to see what kind of products come out of this data. How is the data being reused? By understanding, let's say, your customer, you can also better understand the aspects that you may have to improve in the data, or the, let's say, chain of exchange. How do you deliver the data to the consumer? So basically, in this instance, we are also very much working with in close, let's say, cooperation with the stakeholders from the public and the private sectors. That I would especially like to emphasize that we have, let's say, designated reuse section in our national open data portal, and through these, let's say, open data community events that we organized in Latvia, we very much have, let's say, received new contacts from data consumers, reusers, and from this aspect, we also very much like to share their, let's say, success stories on the open data portal. To make it, let's say, more not transparent, but let's say put these best practice solutions in the limelight. Of course, we also have these similar stories from the public sector. So you can see that also colleagues talked about meteorological data. So basically, the same thing is for us. The agency that is responsible for meteorological data is one of the, let's say, biggest data providers, open data providers in Latvia, and of course they are also working on their products or solutions that are based on open data. One other interesting aspect that we have identified from this is that in the past years, the um, amount of solutions that are based on open data in Latvia, they have skyrocketed. So basically, we see that also there is a cross-government, let's say, cross-government solutions or cross-government processes that basically rely on the open data portal. So, for example, in 2017, I think when the Latvian open data portal was launched, it was more or less, let's say, a hub for innovators. But now we see that the open data portal is basically also in day-to-day use from colleagues from the public sector and also from the companies from the private sector. So we, of course, as the, let's say, policy makers and the agency as the owner of the portal, we need to work on, let's say, in improving their experience, improving the portal. And this is also something that I will touch upon in the future slides regarding the development roadmap of Latvia. Regarding the open data portal, the current version of our open data portal. So as I said before, the portal was launched in 2017. In 2017, mainly for innovators, open data enthusiasts, more or less that side of the community. But with the growth in, let's say, users, we also needed to, let's say, expand the portal functionality. And one of the, let's say, new features that we implemented in the past years, basically the statistics features. So basically in the portal now we can see what are the most downloaded data sets. Basically through this, let's say, aspect, we foster more or less um, positive competition environment for the data owners. They now can see, okay, this data set is being downloaded X amount of times, so it's very much requested, and this data set maybe is not, let's say, that requested. So they can think and analyze, okay, which data do I need to publish and which data do maybe I can store for myself on the portal or, of course, in their system. I think in the from the technological aspect, I think the Latvian Open Data Portal is very much, I think, in line with the EU standards. So the platform is based on Seacon, and I think the metadata that I'm going to get to in the next slide is also basically the same as is in Croatia. And another, I think, aspect that we have implemented in the past year that has, let's say, given us good results is the newsletter. So now we can, let's say, users can sign up in the Open Data Portal to get the new news regarding the, let's say, activities that are being done in the community. And I think that through the engagement of the open data community, we have also, let's say, expanded let's say the amount of news and information that we can publish on the portal. So for example, I am very happy that we are in close collaboration with all the data owners in Latvia. So basically, if there's anything, for example, if they are publishing any kind of a new data set, they can publish this information on the data portal, and then you can see that, okay, this information is now available. And basically let's say, increases the scope of the open data portal, and we can now reach a broader audience. And also we are able to, let's say, get also the know-how from separate institutions that we wouldn't be able to if we would work in a silo by ourselves. Of course, we have the APIs for publishing data, and we also let's say, support institutions that want to publish the data in let's say, I can say, in a more low-tech manner. So basically, by providing a link where this data is available, basically we try to be inclusive with this approach. We don't want to, let's say, discriminate anybody. The data providers, we want to make the open data ecosystem in Latvia grow and expand. And of course, we want to implement everybody. And in time, I believe that we will all, let's say, reach a high level of also technological maturity. Moving on to the next slide. So the data quality. I think data quality is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing across the board in the process of implementing data policy and also open data. The good thing about this that I would like to highlight is that I think that currently we are very much living in a, let's say, age of metadata. So basically, as Martin has also, I think, also said in his presentation, we no longer look only at let's say, shiny aspects of reuse cases. We also look in more deeper to understand the metadata, to understand okay, how can we improve it and all that stuff. So I think that also the data providers, of course, they are very much aware of this aspect, and they are also asked to fill in metadata in other, let's say, national portals, in the process of fulfilling their, let's say, obligations. So they are very much working with metadata already at the daily level. So this, I think, has very much helped us to enhance the data quality. And of course, from the portal side, the owners of the portal, our digital agency, we provide technical guidelines to support data owners in the process of publishing this data on the open data portal. And one of the new features that I think we launched in the, I think basically it was a few days ago, but is basically the functionality that can help, let's say, evaluate the CSV files that data owners publish, whether or not they are, let's say, up to standard with our guidelines. So we are working to, let's say, implement very much integrated metadata strategy in the open data. We want to make it the metadata as rich as possible, And we are happy, of course, also to answer any questions that we have from the stakeholders at the national level. We organize, let's say, one-on-one calls if it's necessary to talk to them, and if they have any questions about publishing data in the open data portal, we are very much, let's say, always on call, and we are eager to help our partners to make the Latvian, let's say, open data ecosystem grow. But of course, to make it grow and to make it, let's say, future-proof, we also have to look at, let's say, improving our current processes. So the first thing that I think that we are looking at as it pertains to future of the Latvian open data portal, we want to expand this portal. So similarly to the EU portal, there's also a section where is the protected data register that comes from the Data Governance Act. So basically, it's it's no more only an open data portal, it's a data portal. And this is a similar approach that we want to, let's say, implement in Latvia. We are already in the process of planning, let's say, our strategic projects in this regard. So in the coming years, we are very much looking to, let's say, give if the previous improvement of the open data portal, of the Latvian open data portal, you can call it a facelift. So in the coming years, we are looking also to, let's say, rework this solution and to make it future-proof and also, let's say, enticing for other partners. One other aspect that we do have to improve is the high performance data availability. So the data portal is let's say, not capable to analyze or work through all the requests. So we are looking to integrate the open data portal to our national data exchange solution that we are currently implementing. And the goal of this, let's say, project initiative is to make it more or less high performance data exchange, and also open data high performance open data exchange, because we see that businesses and also public sector institutions, they need open data, they rely on open data for their day-to-day processes. And in order for us to, let's say, fulfill their expectations, you can say that, we need to also make the open data portal more or less perform at higher level, especially when it comes to data dissemination. Another aspect that we are looking at is the storage of large data in the format of open data in the portal. Currently, of course, there are some limitations, but we see that there are a lot of scientific projects that publish, let's say, large data sets. And of course, we need to make it also available in the portal. So we are looking forward, we are working towards developing the portal in a way that it will support the publishing of large data sets. And lastly, I think this is more or less some at least innovative approach I would like to think in regards to open data portals. So we are also looking to publish metadata about open source software that's available in the public sector, therefore also facilitating the openness of the public sector in general. So this is more or less the roadmap that we are working with. I have talked about what have we done in the 4 pillars of the open data maturity assessment. And again, thank you very much, colleagues, for inviting us, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janis, for the interesting presentation. And also, we can now go to the panel discussions. I also invite Jilka back on the on stage. But maybe to start off, Janis, there were some questions about the Latvian open data portal, if it's a full data portal or if it's a metadata portal. Maybe you can quickly clarify that. You're on mute. 4 years. 4 years.
There are also data sets, of course. Their metadata is, let's say, important, but there are also data sets. And as I said in the presentation, we are working to, let's say, grow the functionality, grow the publishing capacity of our data portal. So, but yeah, there are data sets and there's metadata.
Okay, nice. So then going into the Q&A. So if people in the webinars have questions, please add it to the chat. We have quite a few questions. We'll try to get through them all, but we'll focus on the most relevant ones, and hopefully we can get through to the majority. So maybe as a first question, one of the audience members says, from their understanding, an open data portal that is mature means that it is inclusive, and they are always looking for the perfect definition, of the open data portal and what it must include. I can respond about how we approach this in the method update. So in previous years, in the ODM assessment, we asked kind of for very specific features, like, do you have this feature? Do you have this feature? Do you have this feature? What we did in the method update is we re-articulated those questions to more ask, do you have a way to achieve a certain end goal? So focusing more on the outcome than the actual feature. But I'm curious to hear from both of you how you kind of decide what features your portal must have. Maybe I can first put it to Žilka. How do you decide what portal features should come next?
Well, I can say, since we are just at the beginning of developing the proper features for our portal, let's say we have no really doubts about it, because any features right now, like as I said before, the feature enabling us to harvest or to have API endpoints to update the data sets and the metadata. Those are the features that we have only recently. So I guess there's a long road in front of us. So I can't really tell that there's a feature that would be irrelevant at the moment. We're not choosing right now. We are still in the process of developing features at our open data portal. I think this is a better question for Yanis, because they really have already advanced open data portal. Maybe what we are developing at the moment, and what we are hoping that one day it will be implemented, is the project that is going parallel with the enhancement of the open data portal, is a data lake repository, which probably will be integrated not in so near future into the open data portal, or the other way around. We'll see how this will go. But what are the main features to be so that we can operate on a daily level is that for us, it's that the data providers can publish their data sets in open format with the open data license, that those data sets are searchable, that the users can reach them and comment on them, and interact with the data providers after analyzing their data sets. This, I think, it's essential, as well as having a standard as a DCAT AP standard, so that we are, let's say, interoperable, and that we can share our data with the others, European data portal or others among institutions in Croatia, sectors in Croatia. This is, I think, is essential to have.
Very, very interesting. What I'm kind of hearing is that there are kind of these core features that must be in place. So there is some basic or essential stuff that you have to work on first. I also, yeah.
Because we are still in implementing elemental features for open data portal. I guess. I think this is a better question for Yanis because they are way ahead of us. So
no, but I think it's also about prioritizing. What I hear is that there are some things that need to be in place first before going on to more advanced features. I also find it interesting that you say that the features are for the data providers and users. So even at the kind of beginning stages, you should think about these different stakeholder groups. And you also actually mentioned interoperable by design. So when starting out, what I would translate that as having some kind of fundamental framework, so that it's interoperable by design, so that there are certain standards and best practices from the beginning. So then you have a good base to build on. And I think really solid advice and learnings.
right. Well, it's essential to be able to provide the possibility for data providers to publish, for administrators, for us in the ministry to have a way of updating data and metadata in an automated way, and to assure that there is a feedback between the user and the data providers regarding their data sets. This is what we are working on. And of course, the basic interoperability, as for instance, we are having now with the high value data sets that we cannot can't be harvested by the European portal because we are lacking few tags which would recognize our data sets as a high value data sets.
As well. And then maybe the same question to Giannis. How do you decide on the portal features and the prioritizing as well?
So I think that basically 3 channels. So one is the EU regulations. So I think the storage of large open data sets is one of the, let's say, requirements that comes more or less from the EU, let's say, regulations. Of course, also the additional, let's say, add-ons that we have to, let's say, tag the data set as an open data set that my colleague said, that's also coming from the EU regulations. But basically I think there's EU regulations, there's also national ambitions. So for example, we are in the process of developing our national data governance, let's say, strategy framework, and one of the sections of this document will also cover open data. So for example, the let's say ambition to publish metadata about open data software, that of course comes more or less from our, let's say, wish to expand the open data portal, and also of course the ambition that I mentioned to make, let's say, rebrand it to the data portal. But I think the most important let's say group that really very much let's say lays down the development roadmap of the open data portal is basically the data providers and the data consumers. So we have to engage with these stakeholder groups. We hold let's say meetings with them. We, let's say, hold seminars, brainstorms. Okay, let's envision our perfect open data portal from the perspective of a data publisher and from a perspective of a consumer, so reuser. And of course we then try to merge all of these ideas together and let's say put them against also our, let's say, financial capabilities, because of course our, let's say, budget for developing open data ecosystem is not unlimited. So we do have to, let's say, look also at let's say value that we are getting from the improvements. But another, I think, improvement that I also touched upon, that we basically so we were talking to our let's say local data owners. In the presentation, I'm talking of them like data owners, but basically there are institutions that publish data, the data publishers, and they know that, okay, there is, for example, this and this institution that uses my data for their processes. So for example, in my slide, there's also, let's say, reference. So basically, in Latvia, address data that's on the open data portal is used by the ambulances. So basically, a very much priority service across everybody. So from these, let's say, reuse cases, we saw that, okay, we need to work on the, let's say, the dissemination mechanism of the open data portal. We need to make the data, let's say, available in more high performance. So that's from this perspective, we gained, let's say, the idea, okay, we have to implement the data portal into our national data governance/exchange platform to boost the performance. But of course, we try to, let's say, talk to the stakeholders. We try to plan from our national as policymakers, and we also look at the EU aspects, basically what comes from the regulations, and then we basically try to summarize all of these needs and to try to fit them in, let's say, 1 or 2 projects that we have, and try to do the best we can with our capabilities.
Yeah, thank you. A nice answer. There was also a question in the chat about kind of the type of regular exchanges and knowledge sharing and experiences, which I think links to what you were saying about you have to consult many stakeholders. From the ODM report, the many countries here, set up certain working groups or have hackathons or promotional materials like newsletters. I'm curious from your experience, what type of engagements are most effective or have been worked the best in your context?
From our experience, basically, I very much value the face-to-face interaction. So this year we had a workshop with our data providers. So basically, we called them to the ministry. Okay, we have coffee and we have, let's say, some sweets. Come to us and let's discuss the future of the open data portal. And basically, it was very, let's say, good discussion from different stakeholders. We also, let's say, from these face-to-face discussions, we also better understand, let's say, maybe the challenges that they face regarding the skill when it comes to working with open data. So basically, these more or less free brainstorm-like environments, I think those very much help the development, because when you talk about, let's say, policy planners and all of that stuff, you usually are more or less constrained to some, let's say, or you have X amount of budget or you have X amount of time. And I think that with these, let's say, brainstorming workshops about developments that are needed for the open data portal, they are very good, because we very much emphasize that, okay, colleagues, think outside the box. Our budget is unlimited. Let's try to think what we need, and then when we have these ideas, then we try to, let's say, adapt them to our, let's say, practical, what we can do from the financial and from the resource aspect.
Super interesting. Actually, same question for Zilka. In your experience, what are the best ways to exchange knowledge and gain experiences?
Well, for us, it's certainly just one small remark I would like to add. I'm full of small remarks, but it's true. I only became a part of the ministry only formed the open data management department 4 months ago. So all the knowledge I have of the data management and open data comes mainly from me dealing with language technology and language data resources. So I'm not really an expert in this field yet, especially not after 4 months. But from the experience that my colleagues had on implementing the open data project and those infrastructural big infrastructural projects, the best way to enhance the cooperation and exchange of knowledge for us was through webinars, educational events, datathons, etc., because in Croatia, I don't think there is even the awareness of the importance and benefits of the open data is not yet on a high level. I think we should even intensify those activities such as educational materials published on the open data, or webinars, or I don't know, seminars in person to promote the open data initiative, as well as to enhance the cooperation between sectors. I believe in the business community sector, there is private individual initiatives that are far beyond the level of knowledge of open data than they are on the government level. But these are only individual initiatives, so I think we're still at the basic level of events and educational events to just to promote the open data or the data management in general. This is the state of play in Croatia, I'm afraid, at the moment.
I'm also curious, linking to a user's question about your experiences with local authorities. They say that they wonder how interested the local authorities are in publishing data. What is your experience there? And how do you approach if there is a resistance?
Well, from my experience, the activities linked to the open data actually increased in the local community in let's say last six months, because as I mentioned before, Croatia has a large number of local entities, like more than 550 municipalities, cities, and counties. And not all of them are, let's say, rich enough to be able to pay attention to the to the data management or open data subject. They are not aware of the fact that they should open and publish their data. But as I mentioned, let's say in a 1 year period, most of the bigger cities and counties already established their open data portals. And I guess this is speeding up the whole idea. And now we have even some local authorities that are doing better in the open data initiatives than the government itself, than open data portal at the national level. But as I said, we try to encourage them to open their data if they don't have the portal to do so. We offer our national open data portal. We offer assistance, technical assistance, etc., to do such things, because they are mostly citizen municipalities. They are depending on the private providers who will, of course, want to be paid in order to open a certain data set and prepare it to be published on the open data portal. And since their budgets are not enormous, we try to help and we try to offer technical assistance so they can do it in a cheaper way. And that's what we are doing with the local and regional authorities, at least those smaller ones that can't afford to publish otherwise. I don't know how this goes in Latvia. I don't even know how many local authorities or regional authorities they have, but as I said, we have them really a lot for a small country like Croatia.
Yeah, I think it would also be interesting. Yeah, Yanis, your experience with local authorities, how does that look in Latvia?
Well, I think there are some similarities that I heard from the colleague from Croatia. So basically, we also have, let's say, municipalities. Some municipalities in Latvia, basically, they have their own open data portals. And this, of course, we are very happy. They're, let's say, innovating and they're facilitating the growth of open data. But we are trying, let's say, to at least reference this data in the national open data portal. So let's say the goal for us as let's say policy and holder of the whole, let's say, ecosystem is not to create let's say more portals. We are trying to, let's say, onboard them to the national open data portal. Of course, there are, let's say, different municipalities. Those who have their own open data portals, they are usually very much, let's say, mature with their, let's say, data. They provide the metadata according to standard. Everything's, let's say, good. But as I said, and also in my presentation, we also try to interact with everybody. So it's not like we're not taking the, let's say, top performers. We are talking to everybody, and basically, also if a municipality wants to publish data, we encourage this, and we don't ask them. Let's say they don't need, for example. They don't need an API by default. They can also publish a link to their data in the open data portal. So we try to make this as inclusive as possible. And yeah, of course, from a, let's say, day-to-day perspective as a lawmaker, and also from the ICT projects, the vast amount of, let's say, partnerships and initiatives that we see, that they come from the public sector, so public institutions. But of course, that we also encourage the municipalities through the, let's say, interactions. We also have, let's say, a non-government institution that represents all of these municipalities. So, for example, we can also go to them and we can discuss. Okay, we wish to, let's say, facilitate the opening of data. Let's hold, let's say, some talks, see what we can do. But of course, when I talk about these initiatives, we also have to, let's say, think realistically about let's say resources. But because from the municipality, of course, if they want to publish data, it's also the question about resources. And of course, in some instance we can help, but not all the time. So it's let's say push and pull. But we are trying to work, of course, with them. We don't let's say put them in any sort of different category. They are part of the public sector, at least in my eyes. So we try to work, let's say, together with everybody.
And
which is really funny that you are not encouraging the local open data portals. This is completely the opposite in Croatia, because we do encourage local open data portals. And as there are cities and units that have at their disposal a much bigger fund than the government itself, then they are more advanced, like city of Zagreb, like city of Rijeka. And what we do on our national open data portal is just we are harvesting them.
Yeah, well,
so aggregate them all on the national open data portal. But I don't see also this is quite a paradoxical situation that we are encouraging local open data portals. I don't see the logic in that as well.
Well, the logic from, at least from our perspective, is that we have an open data portal. Of course, those municipalities who have developed their open data portals, they can continue develop them. But we don't want to, let's say, when it comes to, let's say, public investment, from our let's say point of view, we don't want to create multiple let's say units of the same thing. We have
you want a one-stop shop. as well as
Exactly, and of course, I think that as you mentioned, also for municipalities, that's the same situation in Latvia. For example, Riga, which is the capital city of Latvia, of course, they also have, let's say, very interesting, let's say, use cases from their data. So they can make their portals more or less specific to a certain use case, for example, mobility and all that stuff. And of course, the national open data portal, more or less, it serves the one-stop shop approach. But yeah, I think that we encourage the development of these data-based use cases and solutions. But when it comes to purely publishing data, we want it more or less in a centralized solution.
okay.
And a question to both of you that came in on the chat is, how do you measure then the quality of the metadata in your one-stop shop?
I think that the easiest way of measuring quality, at least from my individual perspective, I think it's purely the completeness. So basically, in the open data portal of Latvia, we have a certain, let's say, mandatory fields of metadata and also optional fields of metadata. So we look at okay, what amount of fields is let's say filled out, and whether or not this information is let's say correct. So the completeness.
It's pretty much the same on Croatian open data portal. But I can't say that we are really measuring the quality of the metadata. It's more what we are judging that is necessary and that would be useful to publish as a metadata. I think it's more that we are more in this phase now at the monitoring the quality of metadata. I think we will have one day, we will have to pay more attention to that, but at the moment I don't think we are paying enough attention to the quality of the metadata. No, and we are not properly measuring it, that's for sure.
And Janis, you mentioned that you have a portal based on CCAN. There was a question about your experiences with the new handling of metadata profiles in CCAN with data.apa. Do you have any specific experiences or advice on that?
I can try to maybe get back to you on this on this question. I will talk to my colleagues. If you're talking about the additional, let's say, information about this is a high value data set or something like that, of course that's let's say sometimes challenging, because I think that and again, correct me maybe if I'm wrong, but I think that in CCAN, this, let's say, feature, it was quite late, because I think that it's an open source. So basically, you have to wait for somebody to, let's say, do the work, let's say, publish the next version, and then you can use it. And I think that this is something that we are thinking about also in the context of developing our open data, let's say, portal and ecosystem, is that we want to also ensure that, let's say, the engine of metadata is, let's say, up to date. And when it comes to the open source, let's say, solutions, there is a risk that this, let's say, the new requirements, they're not integrated in time. And then we basically are lagging behind. So this is something that we are thinking of.
And we're almost at time, but I want to squeeze in one more question for you, Janis, because someone asked about data spaces. And do you see your open data portal evolving into a data space environment?
I think that basically, when it comes to data spaces, if you look at the EU level, basically the data spaces are derived from certain high-value data sets. So you have a, let's say, category of high-value data set, and from this category you can see the data space. So I think that the open data portal by itself probably will not be a data space, but I think it can be a, let's say, key enabler for a data space to store the data, to disseminate the data. And also, for example, there's a very good EU initiative, the Data Space Radar. So when it comes to data spaces, it's basically not more. It's more about the business use case and the reuse case of data, less about the practical storing and dissemination of data. So basically, the portal can help as a hub for the, let's say, sharing of these reuse cases, sharing the scenarios for the data spaces, the business, let's say, logic behind it, and also as an engine. So from this perspective, of course, the data portal will help, let's say, development of the data spaces, but by itself, of course, the portal can't really become a data space. But we are working, let's say, to support development of these data spaces, to support, let's say, these business owners who want to, let's say, create their new solutions from the concept of a data space. We want to give them as much exposure as we can through the open data portal, and then, of course, also provide them with the tools for collecting, disseminating metadata data for their business cases.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much both for your reflections and sharing your best practices. We need to now close the panel because we are at time. So again, thank you to both. And I just want to highlight some upcoming activities and webinars. So next week you can register for the continue the conversation about data and metadata, enhancing quality across borders. Also coming in March is the EU Open Data Days. So there are many different sessions and discussions happening online. You can register at data.europa.eu. And finally, we're pretty curious to hear your feedback on this webinar. So please take a moment to complete the form. And then that concludes today's webinar. Again, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to the two speakers from Croatia and Latvia for sharing their insights and best practices.